What may be a once in a lifetime opportunity for many is coming up on Monday, April 8th. That's when a total solar eclipse will darken the skies over parts of Vermont, starting at around 2 p.m. and lasting until about 4:30. The moon will get completely in the way of the sun's rays, causing a near total blackout for a few minutes around 3:30 p.m. if you're in the right spot. For many Vermonters, that will mean being in the northwestern part of the state, in the Burlington area and the Champlain Islands. The total blackout will be short, only a couple of minutes up there. A partial eclipse will be taking place elsewhere around the state. Here in southwestern Vermont, we're only going to get a partial one, with about 97 to 98% of the sun blocked by the moon. To understand more about what will be going on, we reached out to Dr. Luke Donforth, a professor of physics at the University of Vermont.
I have never seen a total eclipse. Um,
I guess I haven't
from
either.
the people that I have talked to, totality is leaps and bounds more special than a partial eclipse. Um, and that's really, in the business sense, where the money is, as it were, that even going from, like 95%, like that's an A in my class, but a 95% eclipse is still, it's a sunny day. Like you can, it's dimmer, but you still have the sense that there's sun. And that last 5%, like, oh, we're done. Like we've got nothing. And that is where it really makes a noticeable difference. The basic idea of an eclipse. So let me grab things. So I've got the sun and I've got the earth, not to scale. And then, the moon comes in between. But and that's our like our first order, our basic picture is, oh, they all line up. But this one's really big and really far away, and this one's actually much, much smaller, and so it exactly lines up. But at another level, the moon doesn't do this around the Earth. It actually does this. Its orbit of inclination is tilted with respect to the orbit of the Earth around the sun. And so if the moon is in between the sun and the Earth, but on this part of the orbit, then you don't get an eclipse. We don't get an eclipse every month, every lunar month, because sometimes the moon is up here as it's going around. But that plane of motion stays the same as the Earth is going around the sun. And so you get eclipses, you get solar eclipses when you're at the orbit around the sun, where the orbit of the moon is going to bring you in between the Earth and the sun. And so that happens about twice a year because it happens once on this side and once on this side. It's not that we're getting more eclipses. It's we happen to be lucky to have lined up with where it is this time. But next year, yeah, there will be other eclipses. They might not be totals. They might not hit us. Well, they definitely won't hit us next year. We won't get another one until like 80 years from now.
80 years. Well,
For totality in Burlington, yeah, we're a good 80 years out.
so
Um,
I was wondering, is this an opportunity in some way to learn something about the sun and the moon and what beyond the sort of the the light show or sky show that we're going to get? I mean, is there an opportunity for like scientists like yourself to kind of study some phenomena about one of those celestial bodies, or is it just sort of kind of interesting to watch the whole thing happen?
I personally intend to enjoy this for the spectacle rather than try and make any sort of scientific measurement. And I think the vast majority of people are going to get more out of this as a once in a lifetime event than I'm going to tease out some specific scientific thing from this. Now, eclipses have been opportunities to do fundamental science, and there's a couple of different things that can happen there. One is there's the sun, and then there's the corona around the sun, that kind of outer layer that we don't normally see because it would be like trying to see a match next to a spotlight. When the moon conveniently blocks the spotlight, now we can see the match. And so there are there are solar atmospheric scientists who will study the corona during the eclipse because the moon is doing this thing for them. That being said, there are other ways of doing similar things now that allow us to do those scientific measurements and not have to wait for an eclipse. And so historically, that was a rich opportunity, but we have developed tools so that we don't have to wait for eclipses all the time. Yes, this was a thing. This taught us something during eclipses. I don't know of any major scientific things resting on observations during this eclipse.
Okay,
Now, there are also smaller scale science things, what's called citizen science. People talk about, like, observe what the animals do. Animals have a really good sense of time. They understand the rhythm of the seasons and, days and all of that. They're not always looking at their smartphone, and so their circadian rhythms don't get all messed up. And it's going to be like night falling in the middle of the afternoon. Like, that's going to mess. And so people are like, some animals wake up, like animals that you wouldn't expect to see until the evening are suddenly like, oh, it's evening. What? And so people go out and do observation of animals and observation of wildlife during eclipses to see how it's affecting them. Now, big picture, we know that animals react. Small scale, how is that impacting your local ecosystem? Like, that's a fun observation to do. It's not big science, but it's local observational science. And that's fun. That's an opportunity during the eclipse.
one thing is really important. If you're going to grab a look at the sun during the eclipse, even if it's the partial one we'll be seeing down here in Benton County, be sure to wear the proper eclipse glasses. Even at the partial scope, the bright light caused by the eclipse is enough to damage your eye's retina. Also, the Vermont Agency of Transportation is warning that traffic could be heavy up north, with more than 160,000 additional visitors to the state coming through in more than 60,000 additional vehicles. So maybe gas up before, and if you're traveling up north to get the best view you can at the sky show, be prepared for road closures. You might want to leave a little extra time for the drive. Many schools are also planning to close early to get students home in time to watch this rare celestial event. As Professor Donforth explains, eclipses are not uncommon, but a full total one, and where we're in the path of it as it crosses the United States from southwest Texas to northern Maine, is unusual. It could be 80 years until the next one comes our way, so enjoy the show. For the GNAT-TV News Project, I'm Andrew McKeever.